final thing I want to do is get a nice visualization of the mono or stereo settings of my device. Now this will be leveraging a lot of options, possibilities, and I will be taking some shortcuts, of course, to make sure you get the most important parts out of this. So let's start off by creating two buttons that I can click, namely one for mono settings and one for stereo. Let's go to Visio, let's zoom out a little and put one button over here with the shape text mono. Let me first style it a bit so I can copy it over. Fill it up like this, give it a white color and set it to the right font. And I will just first configure this button. I want this to do a couple of things. One, I want to link to a web page. I will link to YouTube just because I can. But what you could also do is again leverage the element placeholder, for instance, or the variable placeholder or whatever, and link to an automation script. Maybe you want to open up a media player that plays the signal in mono the way it's set on the device. So that's one thing you could do. I will just add a link because we've seen most of this already. So I will add a link to YouTube, to a mono version of a song I like. I will set an option to keep the color of my shape, set it to no alarm color fill, because I don't want the color of the element in here, I just want this blue color. I will enable my shape, because the parent is disabled, I need to explicitly do this. And then I will also set a variable. And the variable will be important to mark which shape is selected and which is not. That's one part. And then, of course, also to visualize some extra info that we will take a look at in a second. So I will set a variable named selected audio, and I will set it to mono when I click on this button. And then the final thing I want to do is only show this shape, because I added a small orange line here. I will show you in a second. I will only show the shape when mono is selected or not selected yet, so that it's clear that we can click this. So similar to earlier, I will just compare to a value, and here I will use the var placeholder on selected audio. And if it's not mono, I want to show this shape. Right, so this one has a border. I will place one right behind it, or on top of it, it doesn't really matter, without a border, with the exact opposite condition, meaning it will show when it is set to mono, without the set variable option, without it being enabled, and without a link. So now the result is nothing yet. Of course, I've made a small mistake here, namely that I'm comparing to the string not mono, and it should be the other way around. So this should not equal mono, of course, and then it shows. There we go. So you can see if I would click this, it would open up a YouTube link, but for now we will not, and I will continue. Let's copy over those two shapes. Start with the top one and change this instead to stereo, so that this one shows when we are in stereo mode. And then if I click again, I get the shape right below that one. And this one I want to change so that the variable set will be set to stereo, and I will show this shape, which is the one I want to be able to click when the value is not stereo yet. And of course, I want to play a different YouTube video, which is the same song, but in stereo. There, what I have now are these two shapes. The bottom shape still has shape text mono apparently, so let's change that as well. So now I have two clickable buttons, mono and stereo, because none of the variables are set yet. If I click mono, you will see this one loses its highlight. The other one becomes clickable. Of course, you can configure this highlighting however you like, and it opens up a web browser which plays From Me to You by the Beatles in mono. So those are the buttons. That's just pretty much the setup. All I did was use like one placeholder, not that complex yet. But what I want to do now actually is make a group that contains the shape shown when it is mono and use the same show condition. And I will want to display how the mono signal is being processed. So how is the stereo signal being processed into mono? That's a setting on our device. Let me show you that real quick. If I open one of these elements, for instance, the BBC2 IRD, you can see there is actually a setting here called mono output, which you can set to off, right, left, or left and right. The ID of this one is 177. So that's what we want to show. When we have selected mono, for stereo, I don't want to show anything. So I will copy over one of these shapes just to have the shape text and put it here. Call it mono audio, and I will use the param placeholder with the this element placeholder, and then also the parameter ID, of course, 177. So as you can see now, it has no effect. Why not? The this element placeholder by default will resolve to the element. I don't need this, by the way. Will resolve to the element of the Visio itself. So the card that we have, which is actually a view. So in this case, I want to add an option. So I will change the shape data element here to options and add an option called force property from shape, which means my context for the this placeholder will now be the actual shape I have, which is linked to my selected element. And there we go. Now I get mono audio is left plus right. Now, it's not that pretty to look at yet. I actually want to split this up into two texts. One for the left part of the audio and one for the right part. So I want to check if I can hear something from the left signal, if I can hear something from the right signal, or not at all. So here I just want the results, yes or no. And I want a regexreplace wrapping this parameter. So let's make this one left and this one right. My inner placeholder is the parameter, resolves to left plus right or off or left or right. So I want to be able to cover all of those. So what will I do first? I will make a regexreplace that tries to match the exact string, let me zoom in a little, left. So I will put this between brackets so it can match that entire part. And then it can have anything behind that. So this can be left or left plus right, which is also good. When the match happens, when it is matched, I want to replace this with yes, which means yes, my left signal is enabled. Of course, if I do this and my left signal is not enabled, the result will be that it will not match and I will get the old value. That's not what I want. In that case, I want the value no. So let's change this to show you what I mean. If I change this to off, for instance, it will show off. If I change it to right, it will show left equals right. That's not what I want. So I will wrap it in yet another regex replace. In case the result of my inner regex replace is anything but yes, so I want to negate a part yes. So this is the start of the string. And then we have a new part, and then this one negates what follows. So that's yes. And then the text ends. So if I match with the exact string yes, or if I don't match with the exact string yes, that's the point, I want to replace with no. So now this is my input. This entire part is my input for this regex replace, and it will be replaced by no if it does not match the exact string yes. This is incorrect, of course. It needs to be the string end character here. And we can save. And now it says no. Now all I need to do is copy this over to the right part. Let me drag it down a bit so it's more readable. And here I want to match right. Of course, right can be prefixed, but not postfixed. So if it says left plus right, I also need to say yes. So here I will add the dot asterisk, which means match any amount of any character before the right part. In that case, I will match yes. And the outer one remains the same. If my result eventually is not exactly yes, I will replace with no. And now my right part is yes, my left part is no. And if I update the value, it will update from the inside out, which means it will update the param placeholder, resolve that one again. It will use that result in the inner regex replace here, and we'll use that result in the outer one. Same goes for this element. If I change my selection of the element, it will do the same thing. Right? So you can see here, this is set to left plus right, this one as well, and so on. This one is currently set to just right. If I turn it off, it will update again from the inside to the outside. So that's our very advanced condition. Here we actually wrapped 4 placeholders in each other, starting with this element placeholder and the option force property from shape. Wrapped that one in the param placeholder so that it can get the parameter value for my mono audio. Wrapped that one in a regex replace so that we can match on right or left and replace it with yes or no. And then another regex replace to make sure if it's not yes that we get the right value and not the default, so the parameter value instead.